The greatest challenge facing producer Tomoyuki Tanaka and special effects director Eiji Tsuburaya was to find a way to animate their new creation. Originally, they planned to give their massive monster life using the stop-motion technique used by Willis O'Brien in Hollywood films like King Kong. Instead, they ultimately chose a simpler approach, an actor in a rubber lizard suit.
One of the things that Godzilla slammers often criticize these films for is the rubber suit, and they incorrectly assume that Eiji Tsuburaya, the special effects director, was either ignorant or incapable of stop motion. In fact, he loved King Kong. I'm sure in a perfect world that would have been his first choice, but he had neither the time nor the money to do it that way. So they came up with this ingenious way of recreating massive destruction, which was to create a rubber suit, a latex costume in which an actor could get inside and basically destroy Tokyo by hand and foot and tail.
I knew that Godzilla was basically a guy in a suit. I could sort of see when stuff was fake, but it doesn't matter to me. That's one of the charms of those early films.
Everybody loves Godzilla's roar. The roar was actually created with musical instruments. They took a string bass and they took a coarse leather glove and rubbed it over the strings in a certain way and recorded that and then manipulated the speed, sped it up or slowed it down until they got just what they wanted.
When Gojira premiered in the autumn of 1954, Tomoyuki Tanaka's giant creature and the movie's strikingly serious tone made an indelible impression on Japanese audiences.
The mood of the original Godzilla is unlike any movie I've ever seen, especially any horror film, or monster movie, or science fiction movie. It's so serious. That movie makes you feel like the science has unleashed something that is destroying us. And it makes you really feel sad and doomed.
The original Godzilla's effects are used sparingly, and that's to its benefit. A lot of the shots of Godzilla are kind of low angle or looking up at Godzilla or from a distance, and the film is shot in black and white and almost like a film noir kind of look to it. So that kind of masks some of the phoniness of him.
This new monster wasn't just reanimated by nuclear weapons. Gojira also stood as a metaphor for the atomic bomb itself.
It really is a story. The original film is a story of what it's like to live in a country that's been bombed by the atomic bomb. And that's what Godzilla is a stand-in for in the first movie. He's the A-bomb.
Gojira's mighty impact was about to hit other countries outside Japan. By the mid-1950s, Hollywood science fiction films like Them and Tarantula were delivering giant returns at the box office.
You had the giant ants, or as we used to say, the giants from Them. We started off as small ants, and they were exposed to nuclear fallout, and they became these giant ants. Just about any kind of giant monster from that period you can trace back to nuclear radiation.
Film distributors were rushing to acquire other giant monster movies as quickly as possible.
A small company in Los Angeles purchased the U.S. rights to Godzilla and retitled it Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters, alive, surging up from the depths of the sea on a tidal wave of terror to wreak vengeance on mankind. It's alive, a gigantic beast, raging through the streets on a rampage of total destruction, wiping out a city of 6 million in a holocaust of flame.
One of the things that they did, which is either ingenious or a bastardization, depending on your point of view, is to bring in an American actor, a character actor named Raymond Burr, who later became famous as Perry Mason on TV. And what they did was to excise certain parts of the Japanese version and film new scenes with Raymond Burr playing an American reporter who was waylaid in Tokyo during Godzilla's attack there. What they basically did was disguise this Japanese monster movie as an American monster movie of the type that was so popular in the 1950s.
Dynamic violence, savage action, spectacular thrills.
The American version of Godzilla isn't quite as effective as the Japanese version. Most of the metaphor is missing. Most of the statements against nuclear testing and the H-bomb and atomic bomb testing was dropped from the film.
But enough of the original film's freshness survived to make Godzilla King of the Monsters a king of the box office across America in 1956. The film went on to earn a then mammoth $2 million. But even before Godzilla reached American shores, Toho Studios was already at work on a sequel. Released in Japan in 1955, Godzilla Raids Again paired its title monster with a new sparring partner, a four-legged spiny back brute called Angulus.
Godzilla Raids Again came to the United States about 4 years after it was released in Japan, and it was changed to Gigantus the Fire Monster in America. And no one seems to know exactly why the name Godzilla was changed to Gigantus for this film.
Here's motion picture adventure and excitement to stagger the imagination. The fantastic fire monsters raging out of the flaming bowels of hell. Mighty Gigantus, the battle of the ages. Scenes and sights and sensations beyond anything the screen has ever shown.
Godzilla's name wasn't the only thing that got lost in translation when the film was dubbed for the U.S. by actors who included a young Japanese-American named George Takei.
In Gigantus, there was one word that we had tremendous difficulty getting the meaning of and finding an English word that fit the lip movement. The Japanese word was bakayaro, which means stupid fool. And finally, the director came up with a word, and we tried it, and it fit. The English word was banana oil.
You're so brave, Tsukioka. Absolutely darling.
Ah, banana oil. I was desperate and worried and anxious.
The film didn't do very well at all. It was not immediately clear that there was going to be this long-running Godzilla franchise, but yet Toho was making money off these science fiction pictures. So instead of making Godzilla film after Godzilla film right away, they broadened their horizons and they created creatures like Rodan and Mothra.
Rodan was the story of a prehistoric flying reptile that wakes from hibernation and wings its way into Tokyo. It was also Toho's first giant monster movie filmed in color.
Rodan, which in Japan was called Radon. You know, it's the Japanese pronunciation of radon, Radon. And when that was brought to this country, the title was transmogrified to Rodan. It was the symbol for nuclear devastation.
Supersonic jets cannot catch him. Rockets cannot stop him.
In 1961, the beautiful and mysterious Mothra beguiled audiences with his mystic charm.
What is the secret of Mothra? What is the bizarre spell that awakens Mothra? As these doll-sized girls call to the super god from captivity.
It was a big box office success, and probably because of the appearance of the two twin fairies that enchant Mothra and sing the lovely song that awakens Mothra. The movie was extremely popular with a female audience in Japan.
By the early 1960s, as he faced competition from the latest Japanese monsters, Godzilla had been pushed out of the spotlight, upstaged by a giant moth. And his legions of fans around the world began to wonder if Godzilla was on the brink of extinction.